Hello and welcome to Is This England, a show where we talk about old England games and ask just how England was this.
We're back in the Capello era as Fabio tries to pick up the pieces of the 2010 World Cup. His task? Get the remains of the golden generation to Euro 2012 and avoid the dreaded playoffs.
Time can do. Baby, you mean everything to me. Darling, there's no danger with all that we've been through, that anyone could love you more than me.
I don't know why we do this to ourselves, but we are back in the Capello era.
We can't get enough of it. This was our childhood. These are the years where we first started going out drinking like properly and being able to go out and watch England, and we didn't want to.
I believe me, I've thought about that as we've been doing our research for this. Some of the games that we cover, I'm like, God, I made a thing of that. Like, I got together with friends to watch that.
we wouldn't have had a group chat back then. It would have just been mentally keeping a note of everybody you were like going to see. So I've got so and so coming at this time. He's coming later. He can't come at all. It's like, right, who is going to turn up?
Just a busy phone off the hook with texts or BBMs.
Yeah, or to go and watch this England team.
It's been a little while since we've chilled out and asked for our listeners to like and subscribe. That's not what we do, is it? We don't need likes and subscribes. What do we need? We need 5-star Apple Store reviews.
Yeah, subscribing's okay. Subscribing's a good thing. So whenever we do a new pod, it'll just be there straight on your mat, ready to devour.
On your
on your doormat. There it is, right there on your little comedy doormat. That says beer here or no one leaves without a hangover.
Oh God, love those. Got loads of them at home. I haven't really.
I can see behind you.
So we're going to look at, as we've said, the Fabio Capello era, post World Cup 2010, pre-Euro 2012. That's right, it's qualifying. That number doesn't have a 0 or an even number in front of it. Therefore, it's qualifying.
It's qualifying, and it's a lot of crap that goes on in this era, though, as well. Like, to me, Capello kind of ends after the World Cup in 2010. Like, that feels like the last bit of it. Wasn't good Capello, but it was still like that's where all the stories stop. But that's just not the case when you kind of start remembering a little bit more about it and what happened around this period.
Definitely, it's weird. Yeah, it is weird. I'm trying to think of an example, but almost like when a band does another album, but like after the guy everyone likes from the band has left, and they're like, "We'll carry on without him," and
it'll be fine. It'll be different, but it's fine. But the fans like us.
You know what this is? This is Pink Floyd, The Endless River, England edition.
One for the kids.
Yeah, I was gonna say niche there. We'll stick with the music theme as we move into our time capsule, because I know what yours is and I know it's musical. That is how you do a link. And that is how you explain a link as you do a link. Sticking with music, Nick, what are you putting in the time capsule for 2011?
I am putting in the Submarine EP, the film soundtrack by Alex Turner.
Submarine or submarine?
Submarine. Yeah. Maybe it's just my my vocals.
No, you nailed it. It's one of those words like skeleton. I always think skellington. And
so, why is there not a G in there somewhere?
And I see submarine and I think submarine. Not to detract from what you want to talk about though.
Yeah. It's so Submarine, the film itself, is a lovely little indie film brought to life by comedian and writer Richard Ayoade. I've watched the film once, and I feel like I've got about 3 copies of the DVD. I really enjoyed the film. Again, it's just a lovely little thing, but it's the soundtrack that's really stuck with me all these years. Soundtrack was written by Alex Turner of Arctic Monkeys fame, and it was written in Turner's New York home, and has seen as a bit of a departure from his musical output to that point, really.
It definitely was. It definitely was a musical departure. Very John Lennon, a lot of acoustic
Mm.
guitar and piano on there as well. And it has stood the test of time, I think. And it's definitely like, it's difficult because I think he has done so much good stuff. It's just like, you'd probably put that as like one of the, probably in the top 10 things that he's done. But really, for a lot of other people, it could be the best thing. Short
Yeah,
and sweet, I think, as well, is a good way to describe it.
yeah, I think it's just under 20 minutes long, and yeah, the songs are just beautiful on it. And it was the first time that we'd heard Alex Turner try and do something a bit different. I know, he'd done a few Arctics albums by that point, and he just released Age of the Understatement with his friend Miles Kane from under their name of Last Shadow Puppets.
Yeah.
And yeah, the soundtrack is just beautiful and a different kind of atmospheric tone to anything he'd done at this point, really. And it's something I always end up putting on during the colder months. It's just like a quick little breeze. If you just got to drive somewhere, you're not going to be long, or you're in the flat and like, the lights are off or something like that. And it's just a brilliant thing, really softly spoken, acoustic, and just something it's never far away from my fingertips once the nights start drawing in.
I can't disagree with that, to be honest. Yeah, a real sort of. I'm surprised he hasn't gone back to do it again, because I feel like Arctic Monkeys have. So I feel like Arctic Monkeys now have got an element of sounding like soundtracks to their music, but it doesn't sound like this, because this is for a British indie film where I feel like there's soundtrack elements are like taken from like films from the 60s that were made in America.
Yeah, it's like they do soundtracks these days, but it's to films that don't exist and you've never seen them. Like no one's ever written the films that they do now, but or that's kind of like a bit of an inspiration, really. And yeah, exactly. I'm surprised he's not gone back and do it before. Maybe he's just so busy with like 2 projects, and I bet he's into some sort of weird art as well. Like he's just really really love that.
So from a softly spoken sort of really nice romantic piece of art to something similar, really, we're going to look at my time capsule entry for 2011, which is the sacking of Andy Gray and Richard Keys from their home of Sky Sports. Any thoughts straight away, Nick? I mean, I'll say, I think, we're a bit like Keys and Gray, aren't we, really?
Oh, are we? Okay.
Just 2 fun-loving chaps.
Let me see your hands. Who's got hairier hands here?
I think I might, actually.
Probably.
So I'll take Keys then.
I'll be Grey. I'll happily be Grey in this situation. I think, even though we're both still losers at this point.
Well, we'll just run down what happened first. It felt like at the time, it felt like such a massive thing, just massive news. January 2011, long-time Sky Sports commentators Richard Keys and Andy Gray were forced to leave the broadcasting company. That's one way of putting it. They were sacked after the leak of several tapes in which the duo were found to make derogatory, sexist comments about female referee Sean Massey and other female figures in the industry being football. Mm-hmm. It was during Liverpool's 3-0 Premier League victory against Wolves. There's always something when Wolves come to town, isn't there?
Yeah, I think it was at Molineux as well, from memory. I feel like I've just got a picture of them, like when the videos leaked. And again, but you think back then, 2011, I'm not really sure how I would have seen them.
I know.
Because what would they have leaked
YouTube.
Onto, really? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it could have been YouTube, really. But I remember them, you see Molineux in the background from where they're stood out, and they're like, hands are like clasped behind their back and just pointing every now and then, like fucking Statler and Waldorf.
So it was during a 3-0 Premier League victory for Liverpool against Wolves. And during that game, Massey made a tight offside decision that was found to be completely correct upon video replay. I think during the moment when there was a bit of hesitation, Keys, thinking that his microphone had been switched off, said, somebody better get down there and explain offside to her, Massey. Can you believe that? A female linesman. Forget what I said. They probably don't know the offside rule. That was Andy Gray, that second bit there. The female
don't want to be Gray anymore.
So Gray's going, they probably don't know the offside rule. And Keys goes, of course they don't. Taking it very that's the point where it's beyond banter there. He's taking it very serious. You couldn't even disguise it as a no. As we were just playing about. Gray replied, Why is there a female linesman? Somebody's fucked up big time.
Like they've got the fucking admin wrong. It's like,
Yeah.
we've let a woman in the ground.
We ordered a man. Not a
It's on the
woman.
receipt.
Take it
One
back.
man, please.
You fucked this up, not me. Keys was also found to have made a comment about West Ham United Vice Chair Karen Brady's newspaper column, saying they're really playing the hits at this point. The game's gone mad. See charming Karen Brady this morning complaining about sexism. Yeah, do me a favour, love. The
Being
class.
sexist while complaining about saying that sexism is like not a problem.
So there's all of this, but what's the time? I should have done this research, but what's the timeline with the "would you smash it" thing? Because that was them too as well, wasn't it?
It was. I don't think it was too far away in this period as well, because that was also something that just got leaked around this time as well. Of like, oh, well, there's more that's come out.
Yeah.
And it's bad. Like I remember that clip, and I remember actually when Keys is saying that, you see Graham Souness actually like gently reach out and kick Gray to be like, fucking shut up. And for the fact that Souness has to be the person who's just like, you calm this down now. Because imagine being Jamie Redknapp in that position. It was just horrible for him as well. Like, it's the one time I've ever had sympathy for him. It's like, what the hell can he say in that situation?
No, he was.
I mean, he could just call it out. You know what I mean? It's not like he was immobile to do anything. But we can't really stress really what a different kind of world it was, even if it's only 12 years ago. I remember at the time thinking it was a bit over the top, but they got sacked, and I realize now I was totally wrong in thinking that. But
yeah,
it just felt like, well, what are we going to do? They're going to stop the football now. It was like COVID had happened. It was like, what's happening?
Yeah, both Sky Sports and the FA condemned these comments, which led to Keys resigning from his role and Gray being sacked. So Gray, went down fighting. He then stated, if off-air conversations of television and radio presenters were all recorded, there would be no one left working. That is not to defend what happened. Okay. And this is great from Keys, who said, prehistoric banter isn't acceptable in the modern world. I accept that. We failed to change when the world has changed. We wholeheartedly apologise for our behaviour. It was wrong. I deserve to be battered. I can stand up and take a beating. I'm not sorry for me. I'm sorry for Sean Massey. So, I mean, there's a lot of we. He's talking about we, but Gray didn't like resign with him, did he? He's gone. Well, if you go, I'm gonna stay until they sack me.
Was it kind of again trying to remember the timeline of it? Was it that Gray had been sacked first, and Keys was like, "Well, I'm going too." Then, like to almost like preempt him being sacked, maybe.
But I deserve to be battered.
Like
that is a unique solution.
Yeah, I think he was saying that from memory on a radio interview somewhere, and he was just trying to like front up to say like, yeah, I got it totally wrong, whatever. He definitely tried to like drag Sean Massey back into it. Keys did by saying that. What did he say? He said something about that. Oh, I've spoken to Sean. She didn't have a problem with it. I'm like, did you? And also, if you spoke to Sean, it would have been some horrible like masculine phone call
with a lawyer.
Right, it's Richard Keys here, king of football and Sky and media. I just want to say I'm really sorry about what I said. I mean, can't say it. You don't know who's talking these days.
Do you accept that I am sorry? Yes. Well, say you do then. With his lawyer there.
Sorry. Yes. Phone down.
Write that down.
You all heard it.
Yeah. So that's kind of the end of that. They've carried on doing their thing in like different countries and stuff like that, and they've kind of lent into it now, haven't they? As the world's got more woke, all in inverted commas, and there's more call for people with like to say things that are basically just horrible. I feel like they've just gone, you know what? We pretended that we were sorry. We went away for a bit, but now there's definitely a market for saying sexist stuff and being horrible.
And we've moved to a place that's fine and accepts that.
Exactly. Yeah, it was a bit of a line in the sand moment. Like you say, it was one of those where you're like, I've got to watch it next week, because what they're going to do, just have like a robot. Just, here is the football today.
It genuinely felt, because like it was so rare that you saw football on Sky without either of them on at any point. Like I remember, was it the final word or something it was called on a Sunday after the evening game on a Sunday? It was an hour of Keys and Gray, and usually another pundit on there as well. And I used to absolutely love it. Really, they revolutionised TV and how coverage is done on Sky. It's just the fact that they were awful blokes, like behind the scenes. Like you didn't really know anything because we were young, and you didn't know anybody in media or anything like that to kind of go, actually, they're dickheads or whatever. But yeah, the interaction of TV, the touchscreen screens and all that.
Yeah.
The way they talked about games. Gray was a brilliant commentator as well in his day, and I think people kind of got a bit sick of him because he would be one of the voices on FIFA, and people hate like when they're getting battered on FIFA, hearing like a commentator going on.
Yeah.
But Gray, I always thought was really interesting. He had that weird kind of. He had a conversation with himself, obviously, whenever something would happen. But I thought they were great presenters in doing that. But like I say, it clearly just left them all behind, and the game is in a much better place for it now, even if we are kind of slightly going back to something I'm not really comfortable with a lot of tribalist and opinions of pundits who are very much, well, I'm a Tottenham man, me, I am Tottenham, or I am Chelsea, and all that rubbish. And I just think you shouldn't be that. You should try and be as impartial as you can, even, not being on as the Tottenham representative or the Man United representative.
Yeah, and just treat the game sort of as it is. But yeah, there we are. That's in the time capsule as a reminder for me and you to never go down that route when we're old and grey. Andy Gray.
Keys and Gray.
Let's move on. Why are we haven't even mentioned the game yet, I don't think. We're looking at England versus Montenegro. Friday, the 7th of October. Oh, God. That's what they're trying to do, isn't it? Friday, the 7th of October. They put it on a Friday, but it's in October. A shit Friday.
Yeah. I remember being, just to cut to it straight away, I remember being out in Wolverhampton, and I'm pretty sure I was at Royal London, and I was outside, and I don't know why I was outside. I must have got there late, and it was just like, this is all that I've got. I've got to go outside in like the big beer garden area, and it was freezing.
Yeah, rough. We're continuing our journey down the Capello gold mine. It's a mine of sorts anyway. We covered all the 2010 World Cup, as we've said. So if we're going to continue this era of England, and why shouldn't we? This is kind of the natural next step. So obviously we're not going to really deep dive the living daylights out of a England versus Montenegro game, but we're just going to take a look at everything around it as well as the game itself. It's kind of a summary of where England are at this stage. Where football is in the UK, or in England specifically, at club level at this time, is sort of Manchester based, isn't it? Really, as it would be for a little while.
Yeah. We're still kind of as on the day of the game, we're kind of like going to take a look back as we do here of what was going on around in football at this point, and in the early goings of the 2011-12 Premier League season. The two Manchester clubs are locked at the top of the table, with Man United edging the early exchanges. Sir Alex Ferguson's team had kind of stuttered to a 2-0 win at home to Norwich, thanks to second half goals from Anderson and Danny Welbeck. That same weekend, Man City had won 4-0 at Blackburn, but were still found themselves like a goal behind on a goal difference from their crosstown rivals.
They'd fix that pretty soon with a 6-1 derby win at Old Trafford. Huge moment in the history of the Prem, really.
Yeah, a horrible moment. I remember us watching this ourselves when we were in the pub, and it was just like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. It was just a horrible thing of like, we'd gone out, and I can't remember why. We just kept drinking through it like aggressively to think it would stop, but it clearly just made it worse.
Yeah. City flying in that sense, but they did have their own issues on 27th of September this year, so not too long before this game. They were playing Bayern Munich in the Champions League. I think it was in Munich, Bayern Munich. When I think it was Mancini, wasn't it, this time?
Yeah.
He said to Carlos Tevez, he said, "Hello, Carlos Tevez. Would you mind starting to warm up for the football game, please?" And Carlos Tevez went, "No, I'm not going to do it." And that was it, really. I think directly after the game, because Tevez didn't come on, he refused to come on. I'm not sure why. Do we know why? Were they winning, or Or was it too late? Or
I think they were losing. I think it was 2-0, and it was whatever, a time when it's normal to make a substitute. He was saying, because I think one or two players had already come off, so he was like the last sub in like a bit of a dying game for them, and he was just like, no, I'm not going to go and warm up. Just
Right.
like, well, why then? Because there's rumours of like, oh, actually, it was just a big misunderstanding, and why would you? Because I think he'd already instructed some other players to warm up to bring them on as well. But obviously, you could still only make 3 substitutes. So
yeah.
maybe it was a bit of a misunderstanding. But I remember this being a massive thing the next day of kind of waking up and going, Tevez said no to coming on the pitch.
Yeah, it's the only comparison is the Kepa Carling Cup.
Coming off, yeah.
He wouldn't
Even though
come
you
on.
feel like this would happen a lot more these days with people with
know.
kind of like fragile egos. It amazes me it doesn't happen more.
No, I agree. Mancini was not chuffed. He said that Tevez is finished at the club. But that wouldn't be the case. And I felt like this was huge when he came back, and he kind of came back roaring, didn't he, really?
Yeah,
I mean-
he really set up Manchester City for their first ever title win, winning the title on goal difference by an 8-goal margin in the tightest title race in Premier League history. And it was kind of like their own Man City's own Cantona moment, wasn't it? Of someone coming back who'd been, such a big player for City the previous year and got them into the Champions League, and it was such a symbol of, we are now the coming club in Manchester and we are like a big force in the Premier League. But that 8-goal margin they win the league by, that 6-1 at Old Trafford, really, like, if that isn't 6-1, City probably don't win the league, which is just something that's just insane, really. Like, one result so early on really does decide the end of what happens in the league.
Ugh. Other notable results, just to give you a bit of flavour from the time, the sort of around the same time. Chelsea beat Bolton 5-1 with Frank Lampard bagging a hat-trick. The newly crowned Chelsea manager at time of recording, Frank Lampard.
He's back.
Fulham also recorded a historic 6-0 win over Neil Warnock's newly promoted QPR, with another England man, Bobby Zamora, scoring a hat-trick. And the weekend was rounded off with Harry Redknapp's Tottenham beating North London rivals Arsenal 2-1 at White Hart Lane. Soon-to-be England legend Kyle Walker scored the winner that day to heap more misery on Arsenal, who had already been beaten 8-2 at Old Trafford. A lot of English boys doing the goods in the best league in the world.
Trademark.
I think we won't get into it. I feel like this is definitely a time when you could argue that it just wasn't.
Yeah. I think from what would have been the best league you'd have said 2006 to 11. This is probably at the end of it. It's kind of where this England team is as well, where the Premier League is this great thing, and like English teams dominating in Europe. That's why the expectation was probably so high on the England team. It's kind of that last embers of like, they're just not as good anymore. And a lot of the other players, they still get star players that will come to the league, but we're still not of the, probably never will be of the era of a lot of English players going abroad to better their games as well.
Well, can Fabio Capello help this England national team improve and better their games? Because we're going to start by looking at the World Cup fallout after 2010. And you'd think the only way is up, surely. How do we kick off our post Save Africa sort of regeneration mission?
Yeah, well, first I needed to talk about the manager, really, and there'd been speculation as to whether Capello would stay on as England manager with like the usual names, Redknapp, being linked to the job to bring back the feel-good factor of England, just make them happy to play football again. There's only like one man in the country that can do it.
And feel-good factor, I mean, yeah, it's hard to pin there. You're bringing it back, but from when? There's these fleeting little moments when things seem good, but I'm not sure Capello can do that.
Well, if there's one man for a feel-good factor, it's Fabio Capello, isn't it? Historically terrifying man. I think
he just loves to feel good.
Yeah, well, it's kind of maybe a bit like, not to player power, because that was still such a massive thing there, but the England players maybe enjoying playing for the country, because this is one of the periods now it starts where England players just don't want to be there a lot of the time. Even like some of the younger ones who end up, being called up, they always end up pulling out through injury. So it's just like, yeah, you don't need to be messing with that rubbish. We've got a game like in 3 weeks. We got to be ready for that. And it says a lot from where kind of Capello has fallen from, where even Sir Dave of Beckham had been speculated to replace Capello at one point.
Still not ready for the job now.
I mean, that sounds so. He was still playing.
Yeah,
He was literally still playing football, and some of the press were like, you know what, David Beckham could do a job here. Like, not on the pitch. Or could he be player manager? No, just manager. That's what we need him for.
Drop him and make him manager.
Get him out of that shirt and he looked so good in his like suit in South Africa when he was sat on the bench being furious, and no point of him being there anymore.
He's a man you can build a footballing nation around.
Absolutely.
But they chose to build it around Capello, at least for the remaining 2 years of his contract, which would expire after Euro 2000, after England reached the final of Euro 2012.
And won it, yeah.
And won it.
Yeah.
Public out, so England are still kind of public enemy number one by the time their season starting friendly against Hungary rolls around. Pretty much the same side. So if you hate that, there's more of it. It didn't start well either. Phil Jagielka scoring an own goal, which was seen to have not crossed the line later, meaning Nick.
Meaning that England suffered back-to-back goal line technology faults in games. I mean, just so perfect. The fact that I think I remember being in the pub to watch this. And again, just what the hell were we doing with our lives? Just going to the pub to watch England, Hungary, and there's another goal line thing. And I can almost still hear like the groan of seeing that it hadn't gone over the line in the pub. Just, oh, not again. Just is this curse ever going to stop?
I know, yeah. Steven Gerrard was the man who came to sort of England's rescue. Pulled out one of his Liverpool classic, I'll do it then, Roy of the Rovers kind of stuff. Scored twice in 4 minutes to save England's blushes. Kind of bubbling underneath the surface, and a few of these got game time, I think, in this Hungary game or around this time. What are some of the names that are coming through, Nick?
Yeah, well, you can get ready to tick these off your bingo card. So some brilliant, underwhelming names about to be said here. So Michael Dawson, Kieran Gibbs, Bobby Zamora, and Jack Wilshere all made their first appearances for England in this game.
Wow. I mean, you've got the spine of a team there, haven't you?
Yeah, the West Brom team, probably. Like
Dawson, Wilshere, Zamora with Gibbsy on the flanks. That's spot on, really. But I mean, yeah, underwhelming in hindsight for Jack Wilshere, but probably quite exciting at the time. We got a lot of exciting players to talk about though as we go through.
Yeah,
and
exciting. You say it like that. I think you can just really see the big drop off in quality at this point as well, where you look at the England team and the more recognisable names start to kind of fade into the background. This like, right, we've got. I think Capello even said in like the press, like when he said, "I'm staying." He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna." People like Kieran Gibbs and Michael Dawson, and he's like, Kieran Gibbs wasn't like that young by that point, I don't think.
Yeah, it's strange with international football as well, because with your club, you feel like we can go through a cycle here and improve the team with like investment or what have you. And in theory, I feel like club sides are always improving, like at least a good amount of them. There's a ceiling that some hit and they have to bounce back down, but then they'll get back up. And in theory, I feel like it's always improving. But with international football, you can just go, we don't have anything, and that's going to be for the next 10 years or so, unless a miracle happens.
Yeah, you could. It's very easy to see what's coming down the line and just go, shit.
Yeah, Kieran Gibbs at like 14 years of age as a fan going, yeah, he's good, but is he the best one?
It's just like Austin Powers when that big vehicle's going, like the steamroller's going towards the bloke and he's just screaming at it really slowly. It's like, oh God, they're coming.
But you are right. He's looking to like replace the likes of Rooney, Terry, Beckham, Gerrard, Lampard, Ferdinand with the likes of, the names you just said and more we're going to get to. So
we'll get to them.
We start Euro qualification, then Euro 2012 qualification, sorry. England are drawn in a qualifying group against Bulgaria, Switzerland, Montenegro, and Wales. England start their qualification campaign at Wembley, and they smash Bulgaria 4-0 with Jermaine Defoe notching up a hat trick. So the only good guy to come out of the World Cup, England's new folk hero, Jermaine Defoe, bangs in a hat trick. But there's your excuse and your man for the Euros now. We should have started him all World Cup. He has to start. He's the best player in the world, and he's going to get an injury 6 months before the tournament.
The guy down the pub really likes him, so he must play.
This was also Joe Hart's first competitive game, so him and Wilshere, I would argue, are probably the ones where you're like, seriously, they did look like outliers in this sort of barren landscape that we're about to enter into. I don't think even then you could have convinced me Michael Dawson was going to be like that good for England, but I probably would have wanted to see him instead of Terry, probably, but
yeah, maybe. I mean, he wasn't even that young again at this point. We're kind of picking players who Capello didn't want for the 2010 World Cup, even though they'd have roughly been around. I mean, Dawson went in the end without being even capped. So you just kind of think, he's kind of going to the people he didn't deem good enough previously. Like if this was a club manager, you go, he's trying to make a point here that, look what I'm working with, but this is all he can work with, so he can't really do anything about it. But Joe Hart, you just thought, he's going to be the England keeper for 10 years, you'd think.
Yeah. England's first trip outside of these wonderful isles was with a 3-1 win in Basel. Is it Basel?
Made
FC
a tomato,
Basel.
it's fine.
Against Switzerland, that was. That was probably the hardest game on paper. I know we've got sort of Wales to talk about, but come on, 2 wins like that to start it off, and the way qualifying was in those days, things are going good.
Yeah, I think things are going good. And like you say, it's the hardest game out of the way early. So you kind of think, all right, just an easy campaign. Let's not rock the boat yet, because we're not quite into the not a clue about qualifying campaigns yet. Like this is one of the last ones I slightly remember.
Yeah,
I think it's not kind of like 2018, 20 and those those ones are definitely to be wiped from my mind. But yeah, we've got the hardest group game out of the way. And in the very next game, England proceed to draw 0-0 at home to Montenegro, which would be the first time since the new Wembley Open England had failed to score at home.
That is poor. That is a waste of money for everybody.
A waste of my life watching this.
Oh my god!
Awful, really. And one of the few notes of significance of the of this game is that Fabio Capello, he'd proven future Talk TV presenter Big Sam Allardyce right that Capello only got the game because of his the job because of his Italian name, bringing on Kevin Davies for his only cap.
Yeah,
this is Kevin Davies of Bolton fame, and this isn't even like him of like the mid 2000s where he was really useful. This is like end of days Kevin Davies.
Oh dear me. Yeah, I don't even know what to say. Wembley again hosted an open day for Capello to test out who fancied trying to play for England. This time it was France who were visitors in a friendly in November. Ugh. Goal scorers for France this day were Karim Benzema and Matteo Valbuena. Before any sort of scandal, we can move on from that.
Capello, they're both scored on the day, though. That's just so strange.
I know. Capello didn't stop there. Really, he just wanted to he's like, I'm Italian. Right, so I don't understand England that well, so I'm going to give everybody in England a chance to play for the national country, and that's how we'll learn about the country.
He just loves a trialist, doesn't he?
Jay Bothroyd, Jesus Christ, that's one who gets a run out. Stephen Warnock, you can still find him. Andy Carroll, who would have a career, and Jordan Henderson as well. I should say with Warnock, Stephen Warnock, that is, he kind of brought, it was his last appearances really, and Peter Crouch as well said goodbye. Out of those, you could say, I mean, bloody hell, Henderson's done well, hasn't he? Really, to have still been playing in that last World Cup.
Yeah, to just be amongst the names of Andy Carroll, Jay Bothroyd, Stephen Warnock's not around anymore, but Henderson's getting his first call up. You're like, all right, fair play there. But Peter Crouch is a really strange one because it seems way too early for Peter Crouch to be done with England in 2010. This is.
Would you want to be like? He seems like a nice, sensible, normal person. I don't. I just think he would just think, "Fuck this." I don't. I hate Capello. By the time he's
He's
gone,
never going to play me.
but yeah, he's never going to play. Genuinely, he's never going to play me. And by the time
Yeah.
he's gone, I probably will be looking to sort of pack it in for England anyway and focus on club football. Don't.
He'd have come back for Redknapp, wouldn't he? If Redknapp would have got
Oh,
the
yeah.
job, he'd have been there like a shot. It would have been Defoe and Crouch up front forever, and they'd been a really good strike partnership for England as well. In the years of Rooney and Owen, if ever they missed a game, one of these two would play, and you kind of think fair enough because they score a fair amount of goals for England. I mean, this is Crouch's last appearance, as we say, and Pete the Freak scored 56 seconds after being brought on. It was his 22nd goal for England in 42 games, but Capello seemingly displeased, banished Crouch from the land. So we don't need to deal with that really good record anymore for an in prime striker. We're just Andy Carroll's the future.
What did he banish him though? So Crouch didn't formally retire. He just didn't get called up again.
Capello was just like not interested.
Yeah,
interested in this proven goal scorer.
England, 2010 for them wasn't the year. It wasn't the year for them. I think we can agree on that.
It wasn't a vintage year.
With 2011, a year of new opportunities. And they start the year off in good fashion, beating Denmark 2-1 in Copenhagen. Ashley Young would come off the bench and score his first goal. Jack Wilshere would play second game in the Three Lions. Theo Walcott was back on the scene, and Gary Cahill was starting to make a bit of a name for himself at this time. So there you go. There's your shoots of hope and optimism. There's the future for you.
Theo Walcott's back finally. he's back from 2006 when he first played for England. So now we're in 2011. He's already had a hat-trick in Croatia, so he's got that in the bag.
England's first tie against Wales, I know we mentioned this earlier that we had Wales in the group, that came in March. Wales were at a real low point at this moment in time. Gary Speed had not long taken over. They were 79th in the world, and then by August they'd be ranked 117th. Fittingly, England beat them through Frank Lampard and Darren Bent goals. Bent that goal for Bent against Wales would be his third it was his third game in a row for England where he'd found the back of the net. Excellent stuff.
It was indeed, and Bent on a bit of a scoring spree himself and starting to come through as a bit of a striking option. Now Peter Crouch has got his long legs out the door, so exactly. No need for him anymore. And in that same break, England hosted Ghana. It was a night to remember, with Andy Carroll scoring his first England goal. I mean, where were you when this happened?
I was watching it. Wasting money that I didn't have because I thought this was worth my time. Ghana. If England are trying to recover from a horrible World Cup, and Ghana are trying to make the magic of that World Cup for them last a little bit longer.
Yeah, I think last a little bit longer, and classic England of like, who did people like? Can we get some of the people like in the stadium, please? They don't have to play for us. We can just bring Ghana in. That's fine. One of the stories. Let's sort this out here now.
Here we go, though. Here's the real story. 2 debuts in this game, one for Danny Welbeck. But here's the real story. Matt Jarvis.
Balls watch.
Well, I can tell you I was definitely watching that game then, because the pub went, you can imagine, can't you? To be fair to Wolves fans, it's a big deal for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Would have been the first Wolves player to play for England since Steve Bull. You'd imagine that's would have been, a long time. It must have been 20 years then.
Yeah. And I mean, he was a decent player, but again, it's just another trying him.
Yeah,
I mean, what did he hope he could do? What was he gonna do? Really?
Yeah. He was one of those players where it's just like, if he played for one of the big clubs, he'd be in the team. It's like, because he plays for one of the bigger clubs, which means he's had a longer period of being good, not just like a season. Yeah,
and England couldn't even get the win in that game. They thought they had it wrapped up, but Asamoah Gyan scored an injury time equaliser for Ghana. And that's kind of leads us to a little bit of a break in play from football on the pitch matters, because as ever with England at this point, it's behind the scenes stuff. Everyone's kicking off.
Backstage, the real
Bunch.
stuff's going on now. Subscribe to the newsletter to find out.
Bunch of children. Nick, can you lead us into what's happening?
Yes, I can. It is the so during the same international break, England put themselves into another mini crisis. A little over a year since being stripped of the England captaincy by Capello, John Terry was again named the permanent England captain. And just a little reminder to everybody: in February 2010, Capello had taken the captaincy off Terry due to his involvements with teammate Wayne Bridges' ex-partner. The captaincy was then given to Rio Ferdinand, but Rio was injured in the build to the 2010 World Cup. So Gerrard temporarily led the team in South Africa. Before the tournament, Ferdinand had been struggling with keeping himself consistently fit. And once the new campaign had started, he still wasn't able to do that. And out of England's 6 games, he only featured twice after the World Cup, with that injury still plaguing him. So Capello kind of saw this as an issue. I'm kind of my main captain out on the pitch. Steven Gerrard around this point as well had been injured and wouldn't play for the rest of the season either. So Capello thought, I've got to appoint a new captain permanently because I can't rely on either of these two. So he went back into John Terry.
Yeah, John Terry, who, I mean, yeah, he's the future. He's the future, and he's a reliable captain, even if he's not the future, because I was only joking about him being the future, but
yeah,
he's a reliable captain for England and somebody that everybody likes.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, so Capello basically said, after 1 year of punishment, Terry will again be the permanent captain. I think 1 year's punishment is enough. I'm like, was it? Is that all right?
It's an odd one. I don't know if 1 year's punishment is or isn't enough. But it was never, I'm dropping him from the captaincy from him for 1 year.
Yeah.
What about if we'd won the World Cup and Gerrard wasn't injured and he captained us all the way there? And then if you're going to, like, that's why when people go to court for a crime, they're told then and there how long the punishment is going to be.
Yeah.
You can't just go, by the way, it's been long enough now. He's definitely like reverse engineering that, isn't he?
Yeah. He's now saying, well, I really need him to be captain. And, you look around the England team, there's a lot of fading players there. Like, Lampard isn't getting in the team every week, so you wouldn't say that. And I know he's not like a natural leader, but not all captains have to be like that. Ashley Cole's right there. Ashley Cole is like being England's best left back ever.
Yeah.
And still being brilliant and consistent. One of the few players that came out of South Africa with any form of credit, and you think, what's the problem? Why are you just doing this and going back into something that's clearly going to make headlines? It's clearly going to upset some people in the squad as well. And the way he did it as well, Capello, isn't great. I mean, he talks about Terry being the biggest personality in the dressing room.
Yep.
And he says that being the biggest personality is not a positive. Really, it's very rare. That's a good thing. And he said that he spoke to Steven Gerrard about it, and that Ferdinand apparently refused the meeting. But Ferdinand said that no meeting had ever been scheduled, and Ferdinand himself had to hear about it in the press.
Brilliant. Well, he's handled that well, and that is why England is so good under Fabio Capello. Anyway, God, I hate this era. This lot stole our youth, man. This is the time when you want at least a good England team, at least a likeable England team where you can go, I'll tell you what though, you can never beat Waddle, or bloody
Waddle, famously our era.
But you know what I mean? That's a different era.
Yeah, I know
or
what
even
you mean,
now, like the kids can go Harry Kane though. I tell you what, bloody hell, brilliant. Go back even further. I don't know, but John Terry, yeah. John Terry.
No one in this period comes out of it well, really, do they? No one covers himself in glory. No one's there every week. You haven't even got Wayne Rooney being that like iconic player who's in the prime of his career. Everyone's a bit uncloggy and not good, and all fighting with each other as well, and almost like slightly behind the scenes and fighting that sometimes they don't even know they're fighting. Like the stuff with Ferdinand and Terry kind of comes out a bit later with all the things that happen with that as well. But really, What's Ferdinand must think with that? I mean, just getting the captaincy taken off you. Apparently, you've not even been told about it. You hear about it in the press, and it's going to the guy that you took it off as well because of his misdemeanors when he's not really done anything right to earn it back apart from he's just there. He's existed, hence he's better than you.
FA, man, get the hint. Fabio Capello wanted to be sacked. Come on, just help him out. Hello, everybody. We're going to leave it there because there's just so much good stuff, so much positivity, and so much excitement around this England team in 2011 that we can't fit it all into just one episode. So, join us next week when Capello's boys march on. We'll be covering pointless friendlies, the Phil Jones era, and of course the Three Lions all-important Euro 2012 qualifier against Montenegro. See you there.